It wasn't a stress-free win, but it was a win nonetheless for the Cleveland Guardians. We'll break down Slade Cecconi's step forward, rehabbing relievers, and the future at first base for the Cleveland Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We'll take 2 wins, however we can get them in a row. And hey, if you win on Wednesday, that's a sweep and a winning streak. It has happened before, and this show happens every single day because it's Locked On Guardians, your team every day. We're the only podcast going every day, covering the Guardians, the majors, the minors, the draft, everything in between. We're going to get into most of that today, as we do most days, and definitely this week at some point. That is Jeff Ellis, host of the show for 8 years. I'm Justin Lada, host of the show with Jeff for 4 years. We've both been covering the Guardians minor league system for 19 years. On today's show, we'll talk about Slade Cecconi's step forward in the Guardians win. We'll talk about some bullpen rehabbers from Tuesday and what is going to happen when they come back. We'll talk about the future of first base for the Guardians and if they can get a sweep on Wednesday. So, Jeff, lots to dive into. I was really hoping we'd see another stress-free win on Tuesday because the feeling was so good on Monday, where people did confirm to us that many staples still exist. So that's a good thing. Staples still exists. You can still find the easy button. The Guardians could not find that on Tuesday, but some interesting things happened. Let's start with Slade Cecconi. I don't know if it was his best start because he obviously didn't pitch that many innings. He only threw 4 innings. His last start was probably better, honestly. 5 1/3, 2 runs on 6 hits. He only had 3 strikeouts, but most strikeouts he's had all year was 7. His velocity was finally back to where it was a year ago. He was averaging 94 with the fastball, which is, he was about 90, 95, 96 last year. So better than where it's been most of the year. He was missing bats. The sinker looked really good. He had 6 whiffs on the sinker. Normally not a really good pitch for him. I thought it was interesting that he threw pretty much 90% fastballs. He threw the sinker 38% of the time. He's only been throwing the sinker this year 13% of the time. His 4-seam and cutter usage were about the same as normal, but he only threw 6 pitches that weren't fastballs, 4 curveballs and 2 sweepers. What a weird start, but it was, oddly effective. Obviously, he didn't have an easy time of putting guys away because he had a lot of foul balls, a lot of deep counts, which is why he was out after the 4th inning. And I have no issue pulling him after the 4th inning. I know it was tough on the bullpen, but you got Parker Messa going on Wednesday, who's been pretty reliable. And you got Cecconi out of there, feeling good about his start, and things were pretty positive in general for him. So I will say that I'm encouraged by this start for sure.
Yeah, I'll take it. He definitely, he was missing bats more than he has been. He was getting some whiffs. The work he's put in benefited him, and I can't help but wonder, we've talked about it. Like, this is a guy who never got Austin Hedges to catch him. It's the first time he got someone who is, more of a receiver. And if maybe having Bailey back there helped, there's a lot of information, a lot of things that could contribute to this one. But it's kind of interesting to take the long view and see. And, they acquired him a year ago because they were, excited for what he could potentially become. We know the Rays also were trying to get him, 2 of the best teams at development, both saw some tools and traits, and he's a work in progress. So we'll have to see how it goes. But I again, you want him to go deeper. You wish there were less foul balls and a few less balls in general, so he could have lasted a little bit longer in this one. But I thought it was another encouraging start, and that's 2 encouraging starts in a row for him.
It is. Yeah, he went 5 1/3 last time out, only 4. He's gone 5 and he's gone into the 6th inning 3 straight starts before this one. But as we saw in the Blue Jay start and the Athletic start, going into the 6th inning was not a good idea. And then finally in the Royal start, he pitched good enough in that one. So, I mean, I would say the last 4 starts in general have been encouraging. If you don't put him out there in the 6th inning, which we knew he shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
I think you can say those were encouraging. And then this by far, in terms of, the control and the bats missed in this game, was definitely the best we've seen him all year. And again, not a surprise considering his velocity, ticked back up in this one. I do think it's interesting working with a new catcher. This is the first time he's worked with Patrick Bailey, and it is interesting that he had his best start of the season by whiffs and all that kind of stuff. I know, he's been working on mechanically trying to find some things to iron out command issues and also, refine the velocity, because in spring training, his velocity was really good. It was it was where it was a year ago. And then he got sick to start the year. And then he said he was pitching in the cold and all that affected him. And I'm not sure why the velocity continued to be down after that, but this is the first time it's ticked back up. So, and not the velocity for him is everything, because, he threw hard a year ago and we saw the underlying metrics were not supportive of what he did a year ago. The results were nice and we just, ignored it because we were see him be Mr. Right Now.
What was I took a screenshot because MLB gives you stats during the game, and I thought this was kind of an interesting stat. Let me pull this up. That his hard hit percentage this year is down massively. We know a year ago that it's down like 12% or something like that, from like 49% last year to 37. Yeah, that's again, I haven't even pulled it up. That's what I'm kind of remembering. 49.1 to 37.2. So I thought that was interesting as well for him, that he's had a 12% drop in his hard hit rate, which is another positive sign, just in general for him going forward, that because a year ago it felt like he would get, when things fell apart, he would get hit hard and the balls would go yard. And again, we're not saying he is more than their fifth starter. We're not saying that he is going to turn into anything more than necessarily about what he is, but I think we're just pointing out there's positive signs, there's development. And, when you're looking at this team, I don't feel great about any of the options in AAA. So it's nice to see Slade Cecconi having some positive development.
No, Cecconi getting better is definitely the best option out of everything right now. Yeah, his hard hit rate is better this year. His average exit velocity is better. The big issue for him is he's walking more guys this year, at least until recently. Whereas last year, the best thing he did was didn't walk guys. So he's trying to figure all that out. Other good news, somebody on the team, Jeff, hit a changeup for a home run. Angel Martinez, one home run off the changeup. He could have had another home run later in the game, robbed at the wall by Joe Adell, which, Joe Adell does very well, as we have seen this year. But that was a wall scraper. It would have been a home run if Joe Adell wasn't playing right field. I don't know who else makes that catch, but I was impressed to see someone hit a home run off a changeup, considering this team struggles against them, especially Walbert Arena, who pitched. I thought he pitched really well. He was a guy who, you said like they were letting him off the hook because he's got walk problems. He only walked one batter in this game, but the stuff is clearly very good. Like, he's clearly a good prospect. He got 5 whiffs on that changeup. He threw 4. The book is out, right? He has averaged 32% changeups this year in his outings. He threw 48% changeups in this one. So very clearly that was their game plan going in. And thankfully, Angel Martinez got a hold of one and made sure that they did just enough to not be ruined by that game plan. So, and then, hey, Patrick Bailey, sack fly. Any offense for him is a bonus, and that was the difference in the game.
Yeah, he they had 2 guards ball runs after that home run.
Yeah.
And they just developed, and it was nice to see. And it's something I've talked about is Bailey seemed to find moments with San Francisco. And again, with Rocchio, runners in scoring position, he got a fly out, like getting those sack flies, getting those runs
sack flies,
across, because but it's like what we saw today. It's Bailey may not have gotten a hit, Rocchio may not have gotten a hit, but their protective outs put 2 more runs on the board, and that's why they win instead of losing. So it's just when you can get that run across, they slowly mount up, and it makes everything a little bit better as you get that situation where you're just, one run here, one run there, and that's how you win games.
Yeah, and that's what's been missing, is they've had a hard time with runners on trying to get that sack fly, just making contact. So that was a big step forward. The bullpen was good outside of, I know Frank Wallman had a bit of a rough go of it. Tim Herron, could have been better. Sobrowski nailed things down, and then Cade Smith was fantastic. So even though the bullpen had to jump into action early in this one, they held it down for the most part. So you feel good about that, and nobody was overextended, I don't think so, except for Sobrowski. Although I don't know, I haven't seen. No, Sobrowski probably can go again tomorrow because he didn't pitch Monday, so even at 23 pitches, I think everybody's good to go on Wednesday, which is good news because Parker Messick usually doesn't need a whole lot of help. We'll talk more about the bullpen. We'll talk about guys in the bullpen who rehabbed on Tuesday and what might happen when they come back. Baseball season's heating up. Now you can trade every game on Kalshi. On Kalshi, yes, you can trade every single game. Let's go look at the Guardians' probability prediction market for what they're going to do if they have a chance to sweep on Wednesday. And right now it is trading at 58%. So if you were to go place $100 and buy into the probability of the Guardians winning and then sweeping on Wednesday, you would get $167. I did get Tuesday wrong about the 8.5 runs. This one says 6.5 on Wednesday. Parker Messick and Reed Detmers could be an interesting one. On Kalshi, you're trading against Pierce in a live market, so there's no house. And as the probability changes, you have the chance to buy in and out of your positions. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app. Use code Locked On for $10 when you trade 10 KALSHI. Trade on anything with Kalshi. 18 plus only. Restrictions apply and eligibility requirements as well. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Hope you're enjoying this episode of Locked On Guardians. If you're here every day with us, maybe you want to continue the conversation after the podcast. You can do that by becoming an everydayer, checking out the Everydayer Club at lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer or lockedongguardians.com/supercast, where you can get ad-free episodes of the show on your favorite audio platforms, as well as access to our private Discord server. You can talk to Jeff and I about the game, all things Guardians, all the other hosts of other Locked On shows, fans of those shows, and this show as well. So check the link in the show notes for more on that. So yeah, Cade Smith should be available to go on Wednesday. He got 4 outs. I know we don't love when he has to get 4 outs, but if you want to talk about positive developments, Cade Smith pitching a lot more like Cade Smith these last couple weeks, right?
Yeah, he's settling in. Things are going better. The splitter, he threw it in the dirt and got the strikeout today, and guys are chasing it. And I think what we're seeing is what we talked about earlier is he's coming out and he's getting ahead in counts. So they have to chase that splitter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is a pitcher who has to pitch from ahead. And then once he's ahead, guys overextend. And that was the struggle early on, was he wasn't getting ahead early. He was falling behind. Now he's getting ahead and we're seeing much better results. I do think, I really debated the logic of going to him in the 8th because Rivero is like their 4th string catcher. It's like, that's, I understand, like, you want to make sure you get that out because that should be a guaranteed out versus like letting, trying to do just the traditional save and letting Alamon try to get him. But, that was, I had a big debate myself about whether or not I'd liked that call or not, but it paid off. And in the end, Smith has now been rolling for multiple start saves over the last few weeks. It's been a long time since we had a shaky one. It doesn't mean I'm not nervous when he comes in. I feel like I'm nervous all of these games late if it's close, but he's done great.
That's what happens when you have a team that doesn't score a lot of runs and relies on these kind of victories, is you're always going to get nervous. But yeah, Cade Smith's been much better lately. I thought it was very interesting to see Franco Alamon for the 8th inning, but they moved Gaddis into the 5th inning, who Gaddis, because of the short outing by Cecconi, but Gaddis was pretty good. We had talked this year about how Savant was showing he was throwing a splitter, which it looked like he was because it wasn't moving like his changeup. You can clearly see the difference when he throws his changeup as far as movement. He threw 8 of those out of his 18 pitches, did not get a whiff on it, but we hope to see more confidence on that. Slider was good again. He got 3 whiffs on that. So very impressed there. Sobrowski, I know, got himself in a little bit of trouble, but ended up dominating when it mattered. So I feel good about Sobrowski every time he's out there. The stuff is just so good and so fun. The Guardians, though, had 2 relievers in action in the minors on Tuesday night. So Sean Armstrong was in AA Akron rehabbing from his groin strain, and he threw 1 inning, had a hit, a strikeout, a walk, topped out at 93. He looked, like a guy who hadn't pitched in a while, but I know he's been throwing on the side because he's been staying active, which is good. I know Tom Hamilton was saying that Armstrong shouldn't need too long to rehab. I would not be surprised if Armstrong is back by this weekend or early next week. They go on the road next week, don't they? Is that yeah, they go to Detroit next week. So I wouldn't be surprised if when they go to Detroit next week, if Sean Armstrong is with them. And then finally, Andrew Walters pitched for the first time since April 24th. He, had been rehabbing from lat surgery last year, and then he ended up getting a sickness and was knocked out for a couple of weeks with that illness, trying to build back up. So he topped that at 95.8, 2/3 of an inning, like 20 something pitches as well. He also had a hit and a walk and a strikeout. So Armstrong will be back a little bit faster than Walters. I do think Walters would have been up for where Aleman is right now if he hadn't missed that time with the illness. So I'm very curious to see what happens. Like I know Armstrong will be back quickly, but Walters' rehab clock resets the 30 days after the illness. So they have more time to kick the can down the road on this one, because it's not easy to figure out who's going to take their place or who they're going to take the place of.
And I mean, Walters moves so quickly through the minors and everything else. It's like they can burn an option year and it won't be the biggest deal if he just stays down for a bit too. Like they could, I think that especially with the sheer amount of time he has missed, like he actually hasn't pitched that much in the majors. He's been around for a while, but it's like he had the debut and then the injury essentially eliminated all of last year. So I do think, just knowing this team and how they hate to give away any asset for free, that whenever Armstrong's ready, it's probably Aleman on the way back down. And then when Walters they feel comfortable with, that he's going to elevate the pen, it'll be curious to see. Like, it does feel like at that point, Festa's got to go. The only way that doesn't happen is if Holderman turns into a pumpkin and they decide, hey, we can just shift him down. Because that's going to be the thing with Holderman, Heron, and Aleman. You've got three guys who still you can shift down, and we know this team is very loath. Is that what I want? To
shut sounds right.
Yeah, to give up on any pitcher. Like they seem, Vogt has at points seemed to show a lot of faith in Festa. So. But he does kind of feel like he's got to be the guy at some point where you say thank you, and someone else probably does claim him.
Yeah, I mean, Festa doesn't have any options. His ERA and his FIP this year both stink. The numbers don't look great. The expected ERA is good, but expected stats are just one of those weird things that doesn't have a whole lot of. I don't think has enough predictive ability there, and they use him in all kinds of spots. So like he's been kind of an everything man. So I could see them hanging on to Festa for sure. And like you said, putting Armstrong into Aleman's spot. I think the thing is these types of situations usually work themselves out. So you can easily send down Aleman for Armstrong. I know some people will be upset about that because Armstrong wasn't good before the injury and everybody's been wanting to see Aleman. I get that. I think he'll be back at some point this year. But these things always tend to work themselves out. So by the time Walters is ready to come back, and like you said, they think he's ready to come and pitch in the pen and be good, Holderman could, turn back into a pumpkin, or there could be an injury. We hope, knock on wood, I hope there's not. But like these things tend to just work themselves out more often than not. I don't think I know some people have said, do they send Peyton Pallette back to the White Sox? I don't think they will at this point. I think he's going to make it through the year. He's pitched well enough in most spots, and he's still the garbage time guy too at times. So yeah, I think it's going to be Aleman, Festa, Holderman. You've already used an option on Holderman this year anyway, so you could option him back down and just when Walters is ready, and that way you don't burn the option on Walters. So there is that path too. But like I said, I think these things tend to work themselves out. So
I don't think you worry about Walters' option, because either you're expecting him to be a guy that once he's up, as long as he's healthy, he's up for good.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just saying in the interest of saving whatever you can, or keeping your, not running into a Ben Lively situation.
Yeah. I just, but I guess the question becomes like, is it more valuable to keep the option or to keep an extra arm on the team, right? Like that's like, or, exposing someone to loss. So that's the fun of this debate. Like there's not really a right answer, I would say. And it always is interesting in how much different the team ends up viewing guys. We know there's been a lot of players we're like, we are done with, and they're still here. So it's always different, the evaluation.
I mean, the good answer is Armstrong comes back, you send Aleman down, and then Walters is ready, and everybody in the bullpen's pitching really good. You don't have room for Walters, you just keep him in AAA. That's the good option, right? But more often than not, these things tend to work themselves out, whether it's an injury or a lack of performance. There are a lot of guys in the minors who are performing well, Jeff, including one first baseman everybody wants to talk about. And first base is one of those positions we just can't seem to nail down in the majors. We'll talk about the future of first base for the Guardians and prospects trying to make their way. If you have ever opened your bank account and you thought about where did all my money go, probably something a lot of us are asking right now, you're definitely not alone. We're all trying to keep track of our spending these days. Bills are getting overwhelming if you've got 1 million subscriptions. That's also, really hard to track too. And that's where Rocket Money comes in, because it helps you take control of your finances in one place. I know right now I am looking to get some finances in control. I think we all are looking to make some savings, looking to see where we can cut back, just because things are crazy right now. So really need some help trying to figure out where you can cut, but also where you might be able to save so things can be good. Again, Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel things like unwanted subscriptions that you're not using, that you forgot about. It monitors your spending and helps you lower your bills faster so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Visit rocketmoney.com/locked on to join. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. On a positive note, we want to mention that thank you to all of our everydayers, our first listens of the show every day whenever we get podcasts. We crossed the 6,000 subscription mark on YouTube on Tuesday. So thank you for that. And, in the grand scheme of things, 6,000 is not a lot, especially on YouTube these days. But I don't know, it's a fun round number. And I think we just appreciate the continued support as the number continues to grow over the years. And more people are tuning in, and hopefully this team gives you more reasons to tune in. So do thank you for that. And, make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet on YouTube, and hit the bell so you get notifications for all the videos we post, and download on all your favorite audio platforms so it stays in the feed wherever you go. So thanks for 6K. We should mention, though, on a sad note, Jeff, we didn't do it at the top of the show, but Bob Tayek, who has been with the Guardians for a long, long time, he was the public address announcer.
1999.
I think it's been longer than that because he worked at the old stadium too.
Well, they said he's been the public address announcer since '99.
Oh, I think he's been with the team since the '80s. So either way, he's been a part of the Cleveland baseball organization for a long time, and unfortunately, he passed away on Tuesday afternoon. I know I went to college with his nephew. Shout out Ian, an Akron Zip, but just a sad loss for the Cleveland baseball and Cleveland community and the Tayek family, because Bob was a very distinct voice. He'd been there a long time. People have had nothing but nice things to say about him, and that's a tough loss for the family and for the baseball and the Cleveland community. So, thoughts with the family over there.
100%. You may not have known his name before today, but you definitely knew his voice. And yeah, his first year with the Guardians was 1999. Confirmed with 2 places. And he spent nearly 3 decades with Cleveland. No one has anything but positive things to say. 75 years old, and we can continually say that cancer is a jerk face. I can't swear on the podcast, or I'd call it much worse things, but cancer continues to be just evil upon evil. So unfortunately, it took Bob, but he did have a great run. He had a big impact on a lot of people, and his voice we all know. Just best wishes to his family.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good things have been said about Ralphy Velazquez recently, Jeff. Before we get to Ralphy Velazquez, here's my question about this. We had planned to talk about first base a little bit because I'm getting some 2025 Carlos Santana PTSD from Rhys Hoskins. There's zero power in terms of the output. Like, he's barreling the ball, he's hard hit rate's good, he's getting the sweet spot for his launch angle, but like everything else looks bad except for the fact that he's not chasing out of the zone. He's walking a ton. That just feels very final run in Cleveland Santana esque. And I just wonder how long this experiment goes before like you need to say, all right, we really need power. And I'm not saying Ralphie is the answer, to be clear right now. We're going to get into that, but
I think he's fine. And I'll say he's fine because he's
still
not
like, hurting the team because he's got a
Carlos,
347 OEP.
He's getting on base at such a high rate that like Carlos Santana had 1 month where he had above a 100 WRC plus. That was May. And May, he carried this team. He was huge in May, and everything else was terrible. But for Hoskins, like, he has been so far an above league average bat. You would like to see better contact. You would like to see more power. But it's basically once he stops being about league average, that's when you start to worry because he is a bad defender. He currently has a negative WAR because of defense, even though he's been above league average hitter. But he's kind of in his typical range in terms of WRC plus. The big difference though is he's walking at like the highest rate of his career right now, and he's got output. But I'll say this, like, well, last year in 90 games he had 12 home runs. In 30 games this year he's got 3. So it's he would be at 9 home runs instead of 12. It's not that far from where he was last year. I mean, his ISO fell off last year, and there's a reason why you get him at a non-guaranteed $1.5 million in spring training. Is because of that. Yeah. Like, this is why he signs a or 2.5 or whatever it ended up being. But he got a very low amount of money, and this is why.
Yeah, he hasn't played that much against lefties, or maybe it's just because they haven't faced a lot of lefties, but he's only got 39 plate appearances against them and 79 against righties. He's got an 831 OPS against right-handers and a 425 against lefties. And ideally, you want him in there against left-handers. I imagine he'll be in there on Wednesday against Reed Detmers. I will say he's got a 768 OPS in May. I think you'd like a little bit more than that from him. He's only hitting a $130. His batting average overall is in the low 100s. Not that batting average means a whole lot, but you definitely would like to see these guys hitting their weight. I would say Rhys Hoskins coming in at 240. He had 237 last year, so would be much nicer if he had that. So we'll see. I mean, at this rate, I don't think there's a guarantee they stick with him all year unless things pick up. But yeah, like you said, he's not hurting the team. He's getting on base. Things are okay. And there's not really a replacement in-house. Like, I could see come July talking about.
I guess David Fry would be the one. Like,
yeah, he's playing very well, but I could see like talking about Isaac Paredes or Christian Walker if the Astros are willing to sell. That's a future conversation, because I know everybody's answer is to cut Hoskins and bring up Ralphy Velazquez. And as Jeff can attest to, I don't know that there's a bigger Ralphy Velazquez fan right now than me. Besides his family. Like, he is my hitter version of Cal Steven. The data
I had him highest ranked in that draft class. I was the only person who had him in the top 25 in that entire draft class. So I'll throw my hat in that. But you are. I'm not a disbeliever, but you are a bigger believer than me.
Yeah, I'm really very high on where things are going to go with him. So hit another home run on Tuesday off a lefty. He hit it to left center, which Jeff, you can attest to in Akron as well. Very hard place to hit a home run for a left-hander, especially off a lefty. Jeff Ponce uncovered some really good data that's not public. It's under the hood that he's got a connection for. He's seeing almost 4 pitches per at bat. His in zone swing and miss is only 18%. That's incredible. Chase rate's 25%. You can probably expect that to go up a little bit when he gets to AAA. 90th percentile exit velocity is 107. That's really good. And on fastballs that are 95 and harder, this is a big one to me, Jeff. 47% contact rate, or I should say, when he's hitting those. I'm not sure what the data comes out to on that, but he's having better success against fastballs 95 and above, which is a big test for when you move up. So the data on him is really good. Under the hood, the data is really good on him. If you just look at stats overall, he's not a passive hitter. He's drawing walks. He's making contact. He's hitting for power. we mentioned earlier this week that, Angel Hanao made the AAA with about 455 plate appearances. That's generally the threshold Cleveland likes to be at when they promote somebody. And the reason they wait like that is because they want guys to be tested. They want to make sure that, yeah, you're hitting the ball well, you're doing well, but they also, it's not a bad thing for these guys to struggle in the minors, because then they have to get themselves out of it. They have to correct it. They have to make adjustments after pitchers adjust to them. And dealing with that failure and coming out of it on the other side successfully is a big deal for a lot of teams, not just the Guardians. So Ralphie has yet to hit that slump in AA since he's got there last year. Even if we do take out the Reading series, he was still pretty good.
He was average if you get rid of Reading.
Yeah. For a 19-year-old, or 20-year-old, he was average. He's going to turn 21 next week or 2 weeks from now. So I think they want to see him. They want to see the pitchers adjust to him and have him adjust back. And maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. But he's about 200 plate appearances away from getting to that 450, 500, threshold. So I would probably say Ralphie's in Akron for at least, I would say 4 to 6 weeks before he gets to Columbus. And a lot of that might depend too on who's playing first at AAA. Is Kafis back? Does Huff need time at AAA? Because he had a home run on Tuesday and he's looked really good. How much is Brito playing first base? And then, what are we doing with Hoskins at that point? And, Manzardo's shown signs of life, and Manzardo's not going anywhere this year, by the way. Like he's going to be here all year, plus Fry. So Ralphie is not going to make his major league debut in 2026. As aggressive as the Guardians are being, I find that very, very low probability. The other thing you could ask, though, is should he be playing more left field? That's the thing you can ask. He played left field last weekend. He did a little bit in 2025. I would not be opposed to seeing him play the outfield a little bit more, because I'm just such a big believer in the bat. Next year, I want to see the bat in the lineup any way possible.
Yeah, I just don't think I don't think left field has much of a chance of happening. Especially this late in the year, and with what we've seen with his profile and going out there. Like I just don't necessarily believe he's going to be an outfielder. So I'm fine with him being at first base. I think he's going to hit. I think you hit the nail on the head with the idea that like there is like a 0% probability that he would. They're not calling him up. I've seen a lot of people who have even commented like, well, when Ralphie comes up, it's like it's not going to happen. It's not just that they have other players they like and players they'd like to give opportunities to, but it's important to have guys kind of settle in at a level. We talked about like Christian Campbell on the show. Some guys, when they get shoved through levels too quickly, it's like you want the league to adjust. You want the league to adjust and the hitter to adjust back. Like that's an important part of development. And that's why rushing a guy up isn't the best thing necessarily to do at all. And then I think, when you're getting really into it as well, if you really get into the weeds, one of the crazier, or not crazier, but, I had someone say, isn't it a bad thing that Cleveland always has this crunch with their roster? And I said, no, it's a good thing. The issue is when you don't have a roster crunch, because that means you don't have talent. And when you look at what they have to do this offseason, I think that also affects some of adding someone like Ralphie. Now, sometimes they go ahead, like they added Kafis early, but he was already up in AAA. He'd already had
He's a college player too.
Yeah, he had already had an established run before they did that. And like we've talked about right now, how currently this roster is tight. Here are some of the names you'd have to add at the end of this season: Cooper Engel, Alfonso Rosario, Churio.
No.
What?
Yes. No, I'm just saying Rosario.
Oh, I'm sorry. When you phrase it that way, I thought I did it wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Sorry. No. I don't think at this juncture Rosario's a guy, but sure. Churio.
Here's the thing though. It's like Rosario might have value like Watson did, like, right? Like Rosario is top 10 on ESPN's list. Justin Campbell, Franklin Gomez, and at the time I had this tweet, maybe Matt Wilkinson, which is again part of the reason I think they traded him. I didn't even mention Cody Huff on here, who's another guy. So it's like
it might be a guy, yeah.
They have a lot of guys. It feels like particularly like Engel, Churio, Campbell, and Gomez are all slam dunks. Like those are the guys. And we can have the Rule 5 talk another day, but they don't have a lot of guys coming off roster. So some of that stuff matters. And I do think you want to see, because there's definitely a world where it doesn't work out well with Rhys Hoskins and Cooper Engel comes up as your DH, an occasional catcher. And, like that they move to that role, or that, as you've talked about Cody Huff, like I just think, you got to see it with a few guys first. And that's not to doubt on him. He's one of the top 2 prospects in the system. Any way you cut it, as soon as Bazana loses his rookie status. Like, I can see a top 3 debate currently, but the bat's going to play, and the bat is really exciting.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. We'll do this in a couple days, maybe next week. When Bazana, DeLauder did graduate. Parker's graduating.
Parker graduated.
Yeah.
Paulette graduated.
Yeah. Bazana will. When Bazana graduates, Ralphie's my number 1. Just going to spoiler alert now. We'll talk about how that all happens.
He's my number 2 because of position. I'm still
fair enough. Yeah, we'll have that debate next week, I think, and we'll talk about the guys who graduated, including Tugboat, and how that affects our prospect rankings. Jeff doesn't. Yeah, Jeff, Guardian sweep Wednesday behind Parker Messick. Yes, no.
No, because I'm not going to jinx this. I'm going to say no.
They're going to jinx. Didn't work last week either.
I don't care. I'm not going to take the blame on this. I am not taking the blame if they don't get this series. I
say sweep. Parker's been really good. The Angels lineup's not great, so I'll say they sweep. Even though Reed Detmers is
it's an okay lineup. That's the thing. Like, the Angels have an okay lineup, and Reed Detmers has been a tough pitcher this year. This is a hard matchup. This is the hardest game in the series by far.
Guardians sweep. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll do a mock draft reaction. We have to talk about prospect rankings, and then Friday show we will have a mailbag. So insiders and everydayers, start submitting your questions for Friday's show.
Thank you all, and go Guardians, go.